It's 2022, and Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson were just offered over $300 million to switch from the PGA Tour to the newly formed LIV Golf. But what they didn't know is that they were just chess pawns in a billion-dollar war that was happening behind closed doors. That $300 million that we saw in the news, that was just the tip of the iceberg. And this is where it gets wicked. Beneath every tournament, beneath every TV contract, behind every promotion that we saw on TV, there's a hidden power struggle that was rigging the fate of every professional golfer for years without you and me realizing it. I used to think that golf was just about pure skill, but I was wrong, because there's a small group of power brokers, not players, who are deciding who gets rich, who gets famous, and even who wins. Look, this is gonna sound scary, but this isn't the golf that we all once knew. It's a high-stakes economic chess match where billionaires are pulling the strings from the shadows. And once you see how deep this system runs, you'll probably never watch golf the same way again. I know I haven't. I really want you to think about this. Have you ever seen a country that has no previous golf history whatsoever all of a sudden spend billions of dollars to create a rival golf tour? And to be honest, the answer to this question, it reveals a game that is far more calculated than anything that is ever played actually on the course. All right, so let me take you back to 2021. Whispers began circulating about how the golf world was about to see this new mysterious competitor to the PGA Tour. And behind the scenes, there was something called a public investment fund of Saudi Arabia. A little quick way to remember it is called the PIF. But what it was a $620 billion wealth fund. And it was quietly assembling because it was going to become what we all have learned to know as LIV Golf. It's a direct challenge to the established PGA Tour order that we are all used to. But the PIF, they had a problem. They wanted to completely transform Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil. They basically just wanted to diversify their portfolio. And it was being controlled by the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And they saw golf, because of its elite audience, its global prestige, it became a prime target. And by bankrolling LIV Golf, Saudi Arabia engaged in what was called sportswashing. So what this basically is leveraging high-profile sports investments to soften its controversial international reputation, which included a lot of scrutiny because of the murder of a journalist named Jamal Khashoggi. So hopefully you see what I'm talking about, that this goes way deep. You see, LIV's approach was unlike anything that had been seen in golf ever, because instead of rewarding performance, it started using guaranteed massive contracts just for participating, just for playing in these matches. And it started hitting some of our favorite players close to home, like Phil Mickelson, Dustin Johnson, who each reportedly was offered anywhere from $100 to $200 million each up front just to play. To put that into perspective, Tiger Woods, when he was playing, probably made $120 million across his entire 27-year PGA Tour. A lot less than what the LIV players were getting just for coming on board. But here's the big problem that the PGA Tour had. They were a non-profit organization, meaning they're not there for profit. They're not there trying to make money, and financially, they could not compete with these contracts. The people who were running LIV Golf, they knew this. So Commissioner of the PGA, Jay Moynihan, he called LIV Golf an existential threat, because if they were to do what they thought they were trying to do, they could completely engulf the PGA Tour, essentially making players have to choose between playing golf or not. Now, even though a lot of these big name players started going from the PGA Tour to LIV Golf for all it had money, there were some who stuck behind, and one of which was Rory McIlroy, because he became the PGA Tour's most vocal defender. But eventually, it did end up backfiring on him. More on that in a minute. Rory basically ended up saying that if people were moving purely for the money reasons, then just go ahead and do it. But he warned that if you do take that money, don't be expected to have your cake and eat it too, because if you try to come back and play for the PGA Tour, it's probably not going to happen. Then, this is where it gets wicked. A shocking plot twist happened, all right? So on June 6, 2023, without warning any players or any fans or anything, the PGA Tour merged with LIV golf, basically because they had no other choice. People were shocked when this happened, especially a lot of the players. So this came back and bit Rory. Remember how we were just talking about that? He had reportedly turned down, it makes me sick to my stomach to think about it, but he reportedly turned down $500 million to go play for LIV to stay with the PGA Tour. So you can only guess how he felt. He felt betrayed. It made him look like a fool, learning about the deal in social media just like everybody else. But everyone should have seen this coming because the financial mismatches between the PGA Tour and their non-profitness that they were doing versus LIV and their literal billions of dollars, there was nothing else that could have been done, altering sports forever. But here is where it starts to get even crazier, because this wasn't just happening to golf. It was happening on a broader scale, included in Saudi Arabia's sports strategy in order to basically diversify their portfolio. The kingdom started to build championship golf courses that were hosted by, get this, Formula One races, European soccer teams, the 2034 FIFA World Cup, all positioning Saudi Arabia as like this global tourism and entertainment hub rather than just oil. And Saudi Arabia is doing all of this because of a strategy, creating rival leagues in these sports, offering unsustainable salaries to lure the top talent over, and forcing these established organizations to the table because it's just business to them. But even more than that, it's just power. So golf's civil war with the biggest winners and players, that's just the tip of the iceberg, and it gets a lot worse from here. Now, if you think that what Saudi Arabia has been doing with their oil money has been bad just in recent years, well, this also happens on a local scale. It's happening right here in America because in 1996, Nike did something with their billions of dollars that completely shifted and redefined golf as a sport. Now, let me take you back to 1996. Nike, a company that had virtually no presence in golf at all of a sudden made a pretty interesting and reckless gamble. They signed a random 20-year-old golfer who had 0 professional wins to a $40 million contract. And you all know him, Tiger Woods. Now, this wasn't like any other endorsement deal, just like they signed with Michael Jordan to play basketball. But Nike, they were looking into investing into like a revolution. All right, so the guy who ran Nike was a guy named Phil Knight. And he saw something that was beyond the conventional sponsorship logic, because he saw something in Tiger. It was almost prophetic, because he said the world is about to see something that no one else has seen before in the sport. Nike started to really make Tiger seem like an athletic phenomenon who just happened to play golf. Because before Tiger, Nike's golf revenue was a modest $30 million annually, which in the grand scheme of things is not very much, because by 1998, just 2 years later, that figure exploded from 30 million to 300 million, all because of Tiger Woods, especially with him reaching his prime at the time. So everything that we kind of came to love Tiger for, with wearing the red shirt on Sunday and his whole visual identity, that all came because of this master stroke that Nike was doing. All of that was set up for you to like him. I mean, just think about it. Wearing a Sunday red shirt, when people saw it walking on the fairway, people knew who it was without even needing to see Tiger's face. So while Tiger's meteor was rising at this time and began dominating golf's biggest stages, Nike did the smart thing and started doubling down. So their initial $40 million deal led to more increasingly lucrative contracts, with Tiger ultimately earning $500 million from Nike over about his 27-year partnership that transformed both companies, including Tiger. Now, unfortunately, that commitment was tested to a great degree in 2009 when Tiger had his personal-led sponsor scandal where people like Accenture, AT&T, Gatorade, they all dropped him. But noticeably, Nike, they stuck around. It wasn't about loyalty though, and that's where it gets wicked. It was about protecting a meticulously built asset that honestly, it was too valuable to abandon, and Nike knew that. And it continued to pay off for them, because way back in 2005, I'm sure you probably remember this iconic shot at the Masters where the ball just like hung on the side of the cup for like what seemed like an eternity, probably alone generated like $1 million of free advertising because the Nike swoosh was just right there before it finally just fell into the cup. I don't know what it is, but that is a symbol of seamless synergy. Everyone knows what that means, right? Tiger and Nike just happen to be what and what and they controlled a lot of what was going on because they knew how much money they were making on the back end of it. Now, eventually Nike did kind of exit the golf industry in terms of equipment back in 2016, but they still stuck with Tiger all the way up until as recent as 2023, where they finally ended their transformative sponsorship ever. Now, even though Nike and Tiger Woods was completely revolutionizing golf's public image, there was another side of the sport that completely remained invisible to most fans like you and me. It's a place where even billionaires had to wait years, and sometimes they even rejected presidents and all of this stuff for this precious membership. And that membership was in the Augusta National Golf Club. Now, this membership into Augusta National was completely invitation only, and if you did get an invitation, you had to cough up around $250,000, which for most of the people who got those invitations, it's pretty much pocket change to them. But even in this particular circumstance, money and wealth wasn't even enough to be accepted. Inside the gates of Augusta, if you were able to finally get inside, more than just golf was being played. We're talking about business deals that were just unfolding in real time. I mean, let me know if you know some of these people. Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, the Fortune 500 CEOs. Those are the kind of people that walk the fairways of this particular golf club. And with merging companies and forming alliances and all of this stuff, it is done completely away from the public scrutiny of it all. Some of these biggest deals were happening right there on the golf course. So, for example, a casual conversation on the 12th tee about a promising startup could lead to a deal that was closed by the 18th hole, and a transaction that the SEC would never see. But see, Augusta National, they have a problem. And that problem was that the power structures that was excluding most people up until at least 1990, it had zero, I'll say it again, zero black members. Same thing when it came to women. Women were not included in this upwards to around 2012, when I think Condoleezza Rice and the financier Darla Moore finally broke that barrier. But here's where it starts to get interesting, because this exclusive network that Augusta was promoting was more than just Augusta. We're talking about Pine Valley, Cypress Point. They were operating very similar structures with these insanely lengthy waiting lists where careful membership curation existed that was pretty much financially gatekeeping as much as they possibly could. Memberships at these types of clubs, they weren't just regular memberships. They were opening the doors to golf's governing bodies. We're talking the USGA, PGA of America, other types of key organizations. And the self-perpetuating cycle that really ensures power remains only with the elite circle that they were allowing in. So in a word, a membership into any of these golf clubs wasn't just a status symbol, it was literally a key to the kingdom, ensuring that the future of not just golf, but of many sports remained controlled by only a privileged few who met the particular curated criteria that these particular golf clubs only wanted inside. So now, this has completely changed the way that I watch golf, because if it's a Sunday afternoon and I'm sitting down trying to watch me a little golf, it's not just people trying to get a ball into a hole in as few strokes as possible. I'm witnessing moves that are in this huge global chess match where billions of dollars and political influence and all of this stuff is it's changing the soul of the centuries-old sport that we all have come to love. And these seismic power shifts are not just happening internationally, they're happening right here in the United States as well. And seemingly, all we can usually do is just turn on TV and just watch it. So what do you think about that? Is this a problem, or am I making too much of a deal out of it? I'll catch you in the next video.